Hey, Doug.
Hey, Quincy, how are you?
I'm good. How's my brother from Hattiesburg doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
I was just down your way yesterday and Tuesday for the Mississippi Association of Institutional Research
Ooh, should stop by.
conference. Well, I was busy with the conference,
Yeah. Well,
or I would have. And you're not in the party hall. You're over in the North Academic Building, I
yep.
believe, right? Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. I didn't get that way, or I would have stopped by.
We're the uptown folks.
You're the uptown. You're the northerners.
Yeah, there you go. Northerners.
Oh, that's funny. Let's give it just a couple more minutes. See if a few more people jump on. All right, folks. Well, I've got 2:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. And again, this is just a drop in. I don't have any particular agenda item that I'm going to spend an awful lot of time on, but I will just add a point of clarification from my email that went out on the 4th of February. This came up today during the SCP Council, and it's about uh, the plan detailing how you'll meet the USM 3-year graduate metric within 2 years. Little bit of clarity probably needs to be provided around that, and again, it depends on your situation for your program. The closer your program is to that 3-year aspirational minimum, the more we would anticipate that you'd be able to achieve that minimum within 2 years. If you're further away from that, your plan really needs to probably focus on within the next couple of years how you're going to get your enrollments to meet that aspirational minimum in short order. But the committee's going to have the common sense to know, kind of where you're sitting is going to depend on how much time it's actually going to take to approach that USM aspirational minimum. And so just wanted to add a little clarifying point there. And other than that, I will turn it over. Let me just remind everybody, this is being recorded so that anybody who couldn't attend can listen to any of the questions that are there. So just keep that in mind. I will try to be as direct and forthcoming as I can be. But if I don't know something, I will certainly tell you that I don't know something. So, uh, Melissa, breaking the ice for me. Great.
Thanks. I have a meeting at 3, so I figured I better sneak it in while I can. Um, Question for you related to consolidating degree plans and the marketing plan associated with that. Um, if part of the marketing plan is to market internally through different programming on campus that utilizes courses heavily that could benefit from a certificate, um, is it helpful or is it more meaningful to have those conversations prior to the CAP being submitted? Would that essentially strengthen the argument, or do those conversations not need to be had beforehand and the plan
Yeah.
is sufficient?
Yeah. So just to remind everybody, the cap really is a summary of what you're going to do, right? It's not all the details, obviously. So if we need to have detailed discussions, please reach out to myself and or Catherine, and we will be happy to have those conversations with you before you develop your cap.
Okay. In general, is it helpful to initiate parts of the cap like that in terms of like making those connections in advance and saying that in the cap that we've already reached out and have support from other
I think that would
people?
be fine. Yeah, I think that
Okay.
would be perfectly fine. And remember, in Appendix A on what I sent out, there's several things to be addressed, but not all of those will necessarily apply to your situation,
Right.
right? I mean, if you are on the, let's say it's an undergraduate program and you're at, 32, 33 graduates over the last 3 years, you've got to make up just a few students, right, to get to that USM aspirational minimum. You're probably not going to be addressing every, you're probably just not going to need to address every one of those items. But if you're under the IHL minimum or right at the IHL minimum, you're going to have to address more pieces of that because obviously students aren't coming for whatever reason or you need to dig a little deeper. But again, I know it drives people crazy and I understand why it does, but it really, I mean, I have to give the SAC COC answer. It really does depend, right, on
Okay.
what your situation is. And so if I can answer any of those questions today, but again, I can't be prescriptive about what you must do in
Yeah.
because I'm not a content expert in your areas, right?
For sure.
But what again, the goalposts are about making sure that we have sufficient enrollments for all of our programs to at least meet that USM aspirational minimum at some point in the future, right? I mean, reasonably timed out. That's what we would like to see. And is that a hard number? It's a pretty hard number, but it has some flexibility in it. I don't think we would get too picky about a program that was at 35, right?
Hopefully not.
As opposed to 36 or somewhere in that ballpark, right?
Okay,
But
thank you.
it's all about continuous improvement moving forward. Anybody else? Alyssa?
Yeah, hi Doug. So the Masters in Special Education, I have a question about
Okay.
that plan. We are currently in the 2B category of the report, but actually we're on a targeted action plan within our own college that we submitted last May, and we made those revisions and they're currently in Curriculog. They haven't gone all the way through Curriculog, but it would seem like that would put us more in the 1A category than the 2A category than the 2B category. So we're wondering, we're not going to propose new revisions because our ones we just proposed in May haven't gone through yet. Does that make sense? So
It does, and I think what I would do for you all is just, you're not going to need much narrative here. Just submit
Okay.
the narrative that you have things in Curriculog and that you are on a plan within your own college, and these are the metrics that you think you'll get at
yeah,
pretty soon. And so,
yeah, we should actually meet USM's metrics within the year. So that's our
Okay.
hope. But we were trying to figure out how to deal report wise.
yeah, just because you have 2 pages does not mean you need to use all 2 pages.
Okay, so
And
it's
so-
perfectly okay if we address, here are our changes, they're sitting in Curriculog, here's where they are in the process.
Yeah, I think so. And then if the committee had any additional questions, the committee's going to be free to
Sure.
reach out and say, we'd like a little clarity here, there, or whatever. But it sounds like you've already done all the work, just
Okay.
you're basically reporting that it's been done. And
We
I'm-
could include maybe a link to our TAP that we submitted last May if you want me to, our targeted action plan.
I mean, you can't. I'm not going to say no,
Okay,
but I won't
I can
promise
just link
that
it as a
a
Google
bunch of
Doc.
people will
Okay.
look at it. But I mean, you can certainly
Yeah.
submit that. Sure.
Okay, that may preempt
As long as the
some
link is
questions.
accessible for everybody, right? I mean,
Yeah,
just don't put a dead something that they can't get to.
right. Okay. All right, that was my question. Thanks.
Katie?
Hi, Doug.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. This is probably an obvious question, but so our program, we're the Mattel multiple emphases. First of all, in our title, we're going to be consolidating. To consolidate, we have to sunset programs, but I'm not filling out sunset things, right?
For this, no.
Right,
you
it's
will
just
fill out
curriculum is
sunset
the
as
only
part of your
place where-
curriculum
Okay.
process, yes.
And then also in the appendix, it says like it must avoid non-credential terminology such as concentrations, tracks, emphases. Subplans is what we desperately want because as we've talked before, like we can't use the word certificate because that means something very specific in our field.
Mhm.
Are we going to be mad about subplans? Because that's what we're really wanting for our languages.
I think we need to continue our conversations offline, but I
Okay.
think subplans are probably going to work in your case.
I think for us, it makes
Yeah, but
credentialed and not
Right.
using those other terms.
so I think there's going to be a way for you to keep track of what you need to keep track of for your accrediting needs.
Okay.
Or your disciplinary needs because of this stuff with certificates. So I think we can probably make some accommodations there. But in general, what that was all about, right, is we didn't want people really mashing two things together in a way
That
that was
didn't go.
unworkable and then just calling things tracks or concentrations when in reality, it's just a 2-degree plan stuck together.
Yeah.
That's what we want to avoid. And so if
Yeah.
you can do it through a
Understood.
micro-credential, that's a great way to do it. If you can do it through a minor, that's another great way to do it, or certificate. But I understand in your particular case, there are some caveats there that we may need to work through.
Okay, thank you.
Bridget,
I have three kind of big picture questions, I guess. And the first one is, just a minute ago, you said that there's a committee that's going to be reviewing. Could you tell us more about who the committee is? And after that committee has a look at it, what happens to the proposals after that point? And also if there is a template or an example of a proposal that you can give us that might make it easier for this committee to review everything. And then the third question is kind of unrelated to that, and that is in the appendix, it talked about graduation rates and pulling that information. And so the question is, does Helio Campus pull in graduations from secondary majors as the same that it pulls it in as a primary major?
right. So I'll answer the last one first. Helio Campus can do that, but the easiest way to get to your secondary majors is to look at the IR page on the program review page that they have. I can send you a link to that again. And so we do, and what was actually captured in the spreadsheet that I sent out was both primary and secondary majors for all of your graduates. So we do give you credit for that. Helio Campus, you can get to secondaries. I have to remember the pathway and I'll have to talk with Megan about that. But you have to be careful which page you're on because many panels are only about your primaries.
Right.
But internally, it's not your fault if a student just happened by coin toss was your secondary major,
Right.
Versus a primary. But so that's how. So that's that. And then, what was the other question?
Who is the committee,
Oh.
and is there a template or something that we should be following?
Yeah, so there is no template in terms of a document other than it's limited in pages. And the template really is Appendix A from that document. So those are the things you should think about addressing if they're appropriate for you to address. So for example, if you were thinking about consolidating 2 or more degree plans, right, we want to make sure that you can develop a cohesive plan that doesn't really mush. So we would expect something about your plans along those lines. We would expect some type of assessment of market demand. Reviewing the SIP code may or may not be important. Of course, aligning with job market needs. But again, it comes down to where you're at, right? I mean, if you're really close to the USM aspirational minimums, you're going to address fewer of these points than if you're further away from those aspirational minimums.
Gotcha.
And so again, it just really, for you, I mean, and I'm saying for you, like I know what program you're talking about. I really don't. But I mean, let's assume, you know,
Well, I'll
you've
tell
had
you, I have one program that's just a couple of students off from meeting the USM
yeah.
goal.
So, what I would be focusing on there, if it were me, and I just want everybody to know, I'm not the one reviewing all these and giving the provost the recommendation. But, if I was really just a couple of off, I would be talking about my enrollment trends, and I'd be talking about any efforts that you have to try to get more people through the pipeline. Have you identified any areas where there may be a bottleneck for students and what you might be able to do to address that? Because obviously, if you're that close, you've probably got enough student demand to meet the USM aspirational minimum or exceed it. But maybe you've got a little, bottleneck in terms of course availability, or maybe you've got a bottleneck in how you're scheduling something, or maybe, maybe you're, the head count in your enrollment is mostly part-time students. I don't, but you're gonna have to look at all of those things to make a determination. But I would think that since you're so close, as you mentioned, that it's probably going to be a pretty simple narrative to address. You probably already know where you can make some changes to increase the number of graduates.
Yeah, I think we've already done that. It just hasn't, the fruit's not there yet.
Yeah, and that I would just comment on those things that are there and let the committee review that. Now the committee is composed of so we met today. It is co-chaired by Dr. John Meyer. He's the undergraduate or mayor. He's the undergraduate council chair this year. He's done a great job wrangling in the council and getting business done. And Christy Motter. And then each dean sits on the council. There's representatives from the council of directors. Matt Casey's there. I'm trying to think what other directors there.
Matt's the only one.
Matt's the only director. Okay. And then Faculty Senate got to choose a number of members to be on that. So there's a lot of faculty reps on there as well. Paula Smithka's on it. Joanne Burnett was on this morning. I'm trying to think of the people that I talked with. And then, of course, myself, Catherine is on there, Amanda Kale, Rich Moan,
Is this
Jeff
the
Hinton.
strategic enrollment
It is.
committee? Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. That's essentially, so there was a piece last fall that looked at different pieces, and then we added the additional faculty from Faculty Senate. And that's the committee this semester that's going to be looking at these plans that come through. And so that's one reason why I capped the cap, if you will, between 2 and 3 pages, depending on the category. Just because there's going to be a lot of this. Now that does not, like I said before, the committee can reach out to you all and ask for additional information if something's unclear, or ask you to meet with them, whatever the case may be. But really what we're asking you to provide is a kind of a 2 to 3 page executive summary of what it is you're going to be addressing to try to achieve the aspirational minimums.
And then what happens after it goes through that committee?
That committee will make recommendations that will go to the provost, and I believe the vice presidents. And I thought I saw Dr. Nail on. Maybe he wanted to comment a little bit on that second piece. Dr. Nail, are you on still? May have jumped off. But yes, it will go on up to the VPs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I got to stay on till 4 o'clock anyway. So you all, feel free to drop off as you need to. This was just a come and go kind of thing, but I'm happy to stay on as long as you need me to stay on, but I will say goodbye at 4.
Hi, Doug.
Yeah.
This is Marlene.
Hey,
I have a
Marlene, how are you?
question. I'm trying to hang in. Um, this may come after if we officially decide to do teach out plan for secondary math ed. When I looked at the numbers that were on the chart, I guess I'm getting different numbers because I think some of our students, because of however new admissions went, they're listed as Math BS with a mathematics education subplan versus just the mathematics education program. If we would do a teach out, and that's just it may come later if that's what we officially decide to do. I guess my question is, would I be able to include those with the teach out plan for the numbers?
Yes.
And
So
I
if
have,
they,
like I
if-
have two students who, I'm not sure if they're in that number right now, who had to sit out the semester because of personal and financial reasons, but they've already had been admitted. They've been part of this. They've probably got a year left maybe, so.
yeah, so if a student is intending to complete your major, then we need to include them in the teach out plan. And so if you know of any student in that category, right, you would want to reach out to them and include them as part of your teach out plan and the notification.
Because I think I have at least 5 more who are not, the numbers are not GN with what I have. Knowing
Yeah,
exactly.
they're
the
probably early on and just listed in the math major, right?
Yes, they're listed Matt, and I mean, because I teach them, so I know they're enrolled in classes for mathematics education. And we had also, I mean, but that's the whole thing, right? You know, whether a combined degree between math and math ed. But I think we're still trying to figure some of that out with, and Trent, I saw Trent was on here. We met with Trent yesterday, just trying to see how that could possibly work with NDE accreditation and things like that. So, okay, I'll reach out to you if I have other questions. That might be just more pertinent to specific my course, my program. Thank you.
Sure. Happy to help anytime, Marlene. Bridget? Bridget, I see your hand up. Are you still got a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
I've got my faculty in here and we're discussing things, so you caught me off guard. Can you tell us what the timeline is that the committees hope to be through with all of this investigation and have an answer?
So they're going to start looking at that at the third week of February, right? So that's why the due date is there. And so my understanding is they're supposed to have something out of committee, I think early April.
And that's
I'll
when it
go-
would go to the VPs?
That's when it would come out of committee and there would be a recommendation, a set of their thoughts to go to the VPs. And then I don't know what the timeline would be after that, right off the top of my head.
All right, thank you.
Jennifer.
I apologize. I just don't remember. Does it come back to our programs at the same, will we get to see it when the VPs get to look at the recommendations from the committee?
Yeah, I mean, this will be a transparent process. You'll get what the committee has mentioned. Yeah.
Okay, well, and so that should be in early April. And will that be circulated from your office to all the faculty, or will it be circulated to the directors to transmit to faculty?
We haven't decided on that. That's a good question. I'm thinking it will go that the directors will get the committee reports at the same time that the VPs get them. And I'm imagining that it'll just be, or at least the way that I would want to do it is that the directors will get, the ones for their programs, instead of just sending out one big list.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else? Mike,
Hey Doug, I've lost all pride, so I'm going to ask a question that I should know. But I'm just rather than trying to hunt for these things now, I'm just asking. And so for the gap analysis, the graduates from service region institution, where would I find that data? Is it somewhere I should already know?
well, I don't know about should you know. It's on the IR webpage. I'll send you a link.
I have it
Uh,
for the state institutions. I thought it because there's two lines for the gap analysis, graduates from Mississippi institutions and then from regional institutions.
Well, now the regional institutions is harder to get. You would have to get that from the, you can get by zip code, you can get that kind of information from the IPEDS webpage, assuming that that's all still up and running.
Oh,
But
We've got-
yeah,
got about a
that's
week.
what you'd have to reach out to get that. So you can usually find the number of graduates at other institutions by going to the IPEDS data. And I can see if Megan has a kind of a cheat sheet for that might be able to send out to all directors.
okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then one other thing for the curricular analytics, we only need that if we're merging programs. If we're just doing recruitment changes.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, and that's a good point. I mean, there's multiple ways to revise, right? There's
Mhm.
curricular revisions, and then there's revising how you market and recruit and those types of things. And so, yeah, if you're gonna consolidate multiple things, we recommend that you go in and use the curricular analytics and we've got those in. We've got last year's bulletin in there too, I believe. So you'll be able to go in and look curricular analytics on your degree plans and see where there might be any problems with bottlenecks, right? And so we just don't want to create a situation. And you can actually send us a file of what you're proposing, and I can get one of our student workers to put it in curricular analytics to kind of see how the smush would look if you want us to. Be happy
Yeah,
to
I
do
was
that.
going to ask if we could do that. I think we have an option to upload, but I've never tried to actually do that. And
Yeah,
but
I
anyway,
don't know
yeah.
if you can. I don't know if you all can do that or not, or if it's just my office that can do that. I mean, it's a free platform, and it's not like there's anything
Mhm.
forbidding you to do it. But yeah, if you'll send us, if you've got a plan along those lines, I'd be happy to get you in touch with John, and he can work you through how to put the CSV file together, and we can upload it. And you can see how the curricular analytics works out with your flows, and make sure that there's not any. What you don't want to do is smush together. And then I know Catherine's probably, her ears are going, we are not to smush. So in the consolidation, we got to make sure we're not smushing and creating more curricular complexity than we started with, right? We don't want to do that for our students. And that's the whole point of the curricular analytics. It's a tool there to help you see where you may be creating unintended bottlenecks or, well, bottlenecks is the best word, things that get in the barriers that get in the way of student progression. So, for example, you all could actually combine in a way such that now all of a sudden 2 extra courses become a prerequisite to something, and those courses are only taught once a year. That could be a real problem, right? I mean, and so you don't want to do things like that. So we provide that tool for you so that you can actually see graphically how how complex your curriculum is, and you can compare it to your previous curriculum, and ultimately we should be trying to simplify and make it easier for students, right? Or more straightforward for students. Let me put it to you that way. Not necessarily easier, but more straightforward.
Okay. One of our options is to merging 2 programs and to create sort of what we did with the master's degree. Have the students complete choose from, I'm just making up numbers, but say 3 of 6 badges. I'm not sure how that looks in curricular analytics, but that's a specific question.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a bigger conversation. We can get John involved with that conversation with you. He's the one that put all these in a couple of years ago when we first started doing that. So he's very versed in doing this, and he can help you marshal through that, because we'll have to figure out how to annotate that. That's going to be a challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Jen?
Hey, thank you again. I was wondering if it might be possible to send out to the program coordinators that you have, that were invited to this meeting, for example, stuff like I dug around and I was able to find how to make or how to, calculate the gap number and stuff, but I didn't have that. I didn't have that information. I kind of just sort of stumbled on it. So all of the resources that are available for writing these corrective action plans, could you share that with the program coordinators?
What I will do is most of those are available on our IE website. And what I can do is I can have Mike Buckley in my office send out a link to those web pages to where people can get that information. Yes, we can do that.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Happy to help. Anybody got a good joke to tell? Catherine, is there anything you want to add? I noticed you put some stuff in the chat.
I just wanted to make sure everybody knew how to navigate that program review Tableau. It is very eye-opening, and you can bring in your inactive degree plans. You can look at things by discipline, by school, by college. You also have the option to download it into an Excel file, so you can manipulate it that way. So I highly encourage everybody to have that link nearby at all times, regardless of this process.
Good point. Quincy, I saw you turn your camera on. Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say something really silly like go Eagles. Announce who the Super Bowl champions of 2025 are.
Yeah.
It's not Kansas City.
Well, I have to consider Kansas City my home team. I grew up in Northeast Oklahoma, and they would have been the closest professional football team for me. So I hated to see that for them. But you know what? They got defeated. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I saw your go Kansas City on your email. So
yeah, they were defeated. There was no help from the refs that time, as conspiracy theories go.
Okay, I have a joke.
Okay.
You know what's so sad about parallel lines?
No idea.
They have so much in common, but they'll never meet.
Oh, the mathematician in you.
And what do you call a pile of cats?
I don't know.
A meowton.
A meowton. Oh, that's funny. All the jokes I know are not appropriate for work, so I'll just leave those at home.
Yeah, same way. It's like an obtuse angle. The problem is they're never right. Sorry, I'm trying to relieve my stress in all things, so
I understand.
So what's the best way to criticize your boss? Very quietly.
And not while it's being recorded, right?
Yeah, there you go. I think mine's online here somewhere. So.
Mike, you're muted.
I have another question I should probably know the answer to. So these caps are due next Friday.
Correct.
are we, am I like, as for my school, am I going to be in front of the committee next Friday presenting these, or are we just turning them in?
They're just being turned in at the IE web, or email address.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I saw that we emailed them. I just didn't realize if we needed to actually stand up and dance or anything.
Yeah, so just remind it, no. No. So
Yeah,
just
pretty good
remind
news.
everybody, next Friday, as Mike mentioned, and that should be on all of the directors' schedules. Just, we had, Mike Buckley, send all that out so that it's there for you. Those all need to come to the IE email address. Please do not send them directly to me. I'm afraid I'll lose them. So they're gonna come to ie@usm.edu by 5 o'clock, Friday, February 21st, 2025. And please, and I know it sounds picky, but I also put a file naming convention in there, and it really is that way because I don't want to get a bunch of files that are all named phase 2 review and then have to struggle through it. So please remember on the submission instructions, it was to, the file name should be the degree plan _ degree level _ intent .pdf. All these need to be, and I gave an example there. So it'd be like underwater weaving _ BS _ sunset.pdf. And so, your intent can be consolidate, revise, or sunset as appropriate. And if you don't really know which one it should belong in, if you're doing something, just pick the revise. If you're not consolidating and you're not sunsetting, then you are revising in some form or fashion. And so I just ask that those files be submitted that way for ease of management when we go to give those to the committee. And so it'll be much easier for people to do the reviews. And I'm sure you all can attest to that when you have something due to students and they turn it in and it's all got the same file name. Brenda.
Yes. So my first question is about the instructions and link that Catherine put in the chat. Is that going to give me the same data as the spreadsheet you circulated to all of us recently?
It will give you, yes. So that spreadsheet that I sent out, that's where I got the enrollment information. And that is where I got the graduation, 3-year graduation numbers. Now that spreadsheet I sent out had other information as well. So you will not be able to replicate that entire spreadsheet from that link that Catherine sent you.
Okay, but if I just went through the steps to kind of try to follow her instructions, and I didn't have a chance to compare it yet. Those are gonna be the same numbers, same enrollment numbers, same graduate numbers as what you sent us.
They will be. The only place that you might find a discrepancy and catch me on, so to speak, would be inactive plans. I tried to capture everything, but I had a column in there of where we were giving you credit for inactive degree plans. But by definition, inactive degree plans will never grow in enrollment nor in graduation numbers.
Right.
So, if I'm off a little bit, but it's possible because people have had many iterations of their program, and many of which are, and it's possible I could have missed one.
But it's okay in our corrective action plan to use this data that includes the inactive that you're giving us credit for.
Sure.
Correct, in our historical trends.
Absolutely.
And then
absolutely.
these numbers that you sent us and that I'm looking at through her link may differ than what I see in Helio Campus, because it may not be giving me credit for the inactive plans unless I know, how to go look all that up separately.
That's right.
Okay. So it sounds like this would be a better source than the Helio Campus.
For this purpose, yes, because this again, this one that Catherine has shared with you also readily identifies your secondary majors or your double majors, right? And so you'll see in that, I forget what the column title is, but you'll see primary and secondary graduates for a particular year. And we summed those up into each year that in the spreadsheet that I sent out, but
And then
you typically do not see that in Helio Campus directly.
It looks like this Tableau data here is focusing on fall enrollment. Is it better to focus on fall than spring? Fall to fall instead of spring to spring?
We always default to fall because that is typically by quite a large margin, our largest enrollment semester. And we are giving you the maximum number of credit as opposed to averaging between fall and spring. There's always going to be a little bit of attrition between fall and spring, so we're giving you the maximum enrollment credit that we can by picking the fall semester. So in my office, when we're dealing with SACs or with accrediting bodies, we almost always, unless they require that we do otherwise, list the fall enrollments.
Okay. I also had a question about the curricular analytics. When I looked in there, I didn't see graduate programs. Are they just
No,
not?
you will not see graduate programs in curricular analytics. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. It is only, well, theoretically, we could put the graduate programs in curricular analytics, and we'd be happy to do that for you if you have a file for us to put in. But the problem is that most of our graduate programs across the university in general are so flexible in terms of what you take to get a graduate degree, especially at the doctoral level, that curricular analytics doesn't really provide you a whole lot of insight. But if you have a highly prescribed graduate program, which you must take these 30 hours of these courses for a master's, we can certainly put those in for you. We just use curricular analytics primarily at the not primarily, only at the undergraduate level right now.
Okay. And I don't think I was following what you were saying about a gap analysis. What was that in relation to?
So we have an academic demand protocol.
Okay.
And that is on our IE website, and I'll send out that link to everybody after the meeting. The academic demand protocol is just that. It is a protocol to help programs determine if there is a gap in the number of graduates that are produced and market demand.
Okay.
So, and it has to run by zip code because it actually asks you to pull in all the graduates for a particular zip code. So let's say you were wanting to create a new program under zip code X. Well, you would go in and you would follow this demand protocol, and you would take that and you would determine what all the SOC codes are, which are job codes, for a particular zip code. And you would go in and you would use whatever information you have. We recommend Bureau of Labor Statistics, but there are others out there that are valid as well. And you would determine kind of what the anticipated growth in that job is going to be, kind of in the region for the next foreseeable future. And then you would look and see how many graduates with that zip code or related zip codes are actually generated. And you would then subtract those two numbers to see if there's a gap. In other words, are we producing far too few graduates as a state for that particular job set of job codes? Or are we producing a whole lot of graduates for that particular set of job codes? And so it just gives us an idea of what kind of demand there would be for the new programming, right?
Okay.
And you got to remember too, right? Many jobs can be fed by multiple academic programs. And so if we're generating, let's just for round numbers, say we're generating 1,000 graduates across the state every year in zip codes that could feed a SOC code that only has 50 job openings in the state or surrounding states in the next year or 2 years, whatever the case may be. You know, it's hard to argue that there's market demand for, that we're not producing enough graduates.
Okay.
So, it's a guide.
Okay. I also had a question about the situation that forensic chemistry is in. So we have sunset the forensic chemistry and biochemistry degree plan and are elevating that to a IHL level forensic chemistry program.
Yep.
So based on the documents distributed, it looks like the choices of this committee, the best case scenario, right, would be that we would be put on internal stipulation for 2 years. And I'm wondering if I'm reading that correctly, because typically a new program, IHL would give you 6 years to reach their metric, right?
Mhm.
So I would think that we might get more than 2 years. And the reason I think that's important here is because we're going to pursue accreditation, but you can't get accreditation until you've had people graduate from FEPAC. You have to have people graduate from your program before you're going to seek accreditation. So
Sure.
yes, we expect accreditation. Once we can say we're accredited, that would attract a lot of students, but it's going to take us more than 2 years to get to there.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fine. And I think I would just describe that in your narrative. I mean, you kind of, you benefit from having the old program and you kind of benefit from having the new program, but there's really not a one size fits all for you in this case. And I readily admit that. But what I would focus on though, is the chemistry, biochemistry, forensics program that you had, or that you still have, but depending on when you want to take the time shot. Is somewhere between that IHL minimum and the USM aspirational. So you've got room to grow, right?
Yes.
So I would still talk about that, and how this new program actually being elevated to an IHL program with its own name and all that, how you might revise your recruiting efforts and how that might result in more graduates is how I think I would approach that problem. I don't know, Catherine, do you have anything you want to add on that one? That's what I would do, I think, if I were in your shoes.
I agree. That's exactly what I do.
Okay. I wasn't sure. We've already actually we have something drafted for both the forensic chemistry and our CJ master's program, and I've already gotten feedback from the dean on it, and we think it's in good shape. But I guess I'm wondering is it possible for me to show it to either you or Catherine and get your ideas about whether we've addressed the things we need to address?
If you would like to share it with us and if you want us to answer any specific questions, we'd be happy to do that. Yeah.
Okay. And another thing I'm wondering is, do we need to project what we expect future enrollment to be and future graduates? Or is it sufficient for forensic chemistry, for example, to show what the trend has been and then talk about this change we've made and talk about our additional recruitment strategies we're planning on doing without necessarily projecting specific numbers going forward? Because I'm not sure exactly how to do that. And I also don't think it's going to show that we're going to get there in less than 2 years, from now. The new program doesn't start till this fall, and then, we're pursuing accreditation. And so
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to take, I don't know how to approach that part in terms of projecting the future.
Yeah, so the future, if we all knew the future very well, I'd quit my job and go to the casino, right? I mean, that's kind of what I do. And so what we're looking for is your best guess, full faith estimate of where you think you can be at some point in the future. And if I remember right, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I remember right, you're kind of dead in the middle, right, between the IHL minimum and the USM aspirational, right?
Let's see. We're at, okay, our oh, hang on, let me check our spreadsheet you sent me again. Sorry. Okay, we are at, I know we're between them. I just can't remember the specific.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of right. Dead
Let's see.
center.
We are at
26 is what I see.
26.
26. So yeah, you're looking at needing to meet USM aspirational. You're looking at needing to get, 10 additional students over a 3-year period. That's just, 3 1/3, per year to graduate. So it may well be that what you need to focus on is, as you're looking at that, as you're making these changes, maybe you've identified some places that tend to be a bottleneck for students, and you could release, in your revisions, release some of that bottleneck piece, if you will, and address some of those issues. Because you're really just talking about just a little over 3 students additional needing to graduate a year to get to the USM 3-year minimum, right?
So, okay, yeah. So 10 and we're looking at over 3 years, because I thought we're going to be reviewed again in 2 years, right?
Well,
So
but
I have to show,
it's for that 3-year graduate metric.
oh, okay,
Right?
so I
And
would
so
take
what we
3.
would want to see in 2 years is, have you gotten enrollment sufficient enough to meet that enrollment or that graduate metric in a reasonable amount of time?
Okay, it doesn't mean we have to meet it in 2 years.
Not
But we're
necessarily,
getting
no. Now, if you
close.
were at
Okay.
34, 35, 33, yeah, you probably got enough enrollment already. What could you do right now quickly to try to get some more students out the door? I mean, I think if you were in that boat, the boat that you're in, you really are probably looking at a couple more years of having to work at it. And you're doing this overhaul with accreditation, which is a laudable thing. We certainly like accreditation, and I think it will be something you'll be able to market on. And I think you're absolutely right that, well, I don't think, I know you're absolutely right that you've got to wait until you at least graduate some students before you can get the accreditation. Right.
Right.
So that's going to have to be taken into account as well.
So when I'm looking at the spreadsheet that you had circulated to directors, I see you started with enrollment columns, and then you had for fall, and then you had it by campus, and then you have the 3-year grad rates, but it's not providing like grads by year. Where would I find that if I wanted to figure what was our grads for the most recent year and then project the next 2 years? I want to see if that would add up to the metric, right?
Yeah, the grads that I'm showing you are 3-year cumulative graduation numbers, not by year. Yeah, you'd have to dig that information out. Catherine, you were
The,
going to
the
say something?
spreadsheet I shared has it by the last 3 years. By year.
By year. Okay.
Mhm.
So I've got that one pulled up. Okay. So if I look at that,
And actually,
Uh-huh.
you've increased every year.
yes, our retention has gotten better recently.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I would mention that. I mean,
Right.
that's definitely a selling point. If you're retaining more students, then that's more students that you have in your pool to graduate. And so I wouldn't shortchange that at all.
Okay, so Catherine, I see in the Tableau thing that you had linked us for 23-24, it looks like we had 7. So what I would do
Yeah.
is take that number and then the number we think are going to graduate this year and the number we're going to graduate for 2 more years, like 1 more year. I don't know when this review is going to happen. Is the review going to happen in spring of 2027? If you're on internal stipulation?
Well, nothing that's going through right now for revision
Mhm.
can technically take place until next bulletin year anyway. So it's
Okay.
2 years from that.
Okay. So I would look at 20, since ours is going into effect next fall, I'd look at the 25, 26, 26, 27, and the current year, 24, 25, to get a 3-year average. Is that basically? Okay,
That's what I do. Yeah.
okay. And if that doesn't get us to the metric, talk about how maybe another year or 2 we would get there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Okay. And I don't see on this Tableau thing the graduates that we're expecting for 24, 25, but I think you had credited those in the spreadsheet you sent, right?
I had
Expected
put in
grads.
for the 24, 25, those are estimates based on students that we knew at the time that I took the data that
Right.
have either applied for graduation, and that would have counted undergraduate and graduate, or if it's a graduate program, students who have enough hours technically to graduate. And we got that information from the graduate school.
And that was the column that you labeled 42, 48, and 42, 51 grads
Yes.
or future grads?
No, excuse me, future grads. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the future grads is the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
That's the ones we're expecting to graduate this semester, basically.
Yep.
For that would be the 2020. Did that include this fall though? Probably not. 42, 48, and 42,
did not.
51 was. So 42, 48, and 42, 51 was that summer and
That's
fall?
summer and fall. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's summer and fall, and then of 2024, and then the future grads is people that we think are graduating spring 2025, because you wouldn't have been able to predict next summer and next fall, right? I mean, of 2025, right? So
Not reliably. Now, I think the graduate school, when they did it, I think they went out to summer to see. Think that's what Katie Anthony told me, that they looked to include summer students that if they stayed on track would have enough hours to graduate, I think is what she said.
So I guess what I'm wondering is if I were to add together that 42, 48, and 42, 51 column and the future grads column, can I use that as my 2024, 2025 grads number?
You can use that as an estimate, yes. Remember, just because people have applied to graduate doesn't mean that they will graduate, right? It's a best case scenario. You can have a student right now that has applied for graduation in your program that will fail 2 or 3 or whatever classes in the spring and won't graduate.
Right.
But what we're saying is that this is what it looks like you could have this year. That's exactly right.
So,
And chances are that's the best you're probably going to be.
right.
Although we always have late applicants for graduation, so there's always that too. It's really the only data point we could have that kind of gives you credit for the here and now.
And we would normally count it that way. If I'm counting summer 2024, fall 2024, spring 2025, that's how we would count an academic year. The prior summer, fall, and spring would be that academic year's grads.
Academic years are summer, fall, spring, yes.
Ending with spring. So you count the earlier summer. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a financial aid academic year, and then let me get back to you on that, because sometimes I get those confused. There is both a summer, fall, spring, and a fall, spring, summer.
Yeah, I wasn't sure which summer goes with which year.
Yeah, but if you tell us how you're counting them in your narrative, I think that'll be perfectly fine.
That's
Either
good
way.
enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could start with those numbers based on the spreadsheet you sent us and then predict what we think it's going to be for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And that would be what I think we'll have added to your review.
Yeah.
And is it true that in a situation like this where the degree plan is new but kind of not new, right? It's been elevated and it's a very different degree plan now. Is it true that the best case decision for us would be internal stipulation and review in 2 years, or would we not be subject to that because, IHL won't be looking at us for 6 years?
IHL will be looking at you for 6 years, but really what we look at everybody's numbers every year, right? And we've been looking at that every year. And so really what the 2-year stipulation is we're going to be looking at it harder in 2 years to see, are you kind of pointing in the right direction to get to a better place than where you are now. And so, don't take internal stipulation to mean the same thing as stipulation at IHL. But yeah, I mean, if in 2 years, all of these changes and you're at half the student enrollment you were, we're going to have a conversation, right? I mean, I don't mean to be putting you on the spot like that, but, and I'm not anticipating that. I'm just saying
right,
that something like that could happen. And then we have to decide how we're going to move forward in that situation. But, you all have had pretty good numbers, and, there's certainly room to grow. You're making efforts to add additional value for the students through accreditation. I think you're doing all the right things, and I think if you add in some pieces with marketing and with recruitment, I think you can probably readily exceed the USM aspirational.
Yeah. Okay. And when I'm discussing this with my faculty or school meeting, I think one thing that's good to tell them is that, it'll be looked at in 2 years, but it doesn't mean you're going to be cut if you haven't quite gotten there. If you've been improving and you're heading the right direction, that'll be considered.
I think that would be considered. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be from my perspective. I don't want to speak for the provost or the president, but we could have an economic meltdown tomorrow and have to do. But barring all of that, right? We are about continuous improvement, and if we see significant continuous improvement in the right direction, we have always taken that into account in my office.
Okay.
We know that not everything moves at the same pace. We just all can't move at a snail's pace, right? And so, But the fact that you're well above IHL minimums, the fact that you're really only talking about needing 3 1/3 or so students a year extra to graduate to get to the USM minimums, and you're making all these great changes that should attract more students, I think you're on track to having a program that will be looking at the USM minimum aspirations in the mirror.
Okay, thank you.
Because the job demand is there, right? I mean,
Yes, yes, there's
from
definitely,
what I understand anyway of your field.
yes, there is definitely a demand for forensic chemists. I think that once we get to accreditation, that's gonna be a game changer, right? Because we'll be the only accredited program in Mississippi and the region.
And I
But it
think
just
that's something to mention. Yeah,
takes time to get there, right?
it
takes
does.
time to get
Yeah,
there.
I mean, we know that. I mean, you can't eat an elephant in one setting. We know that. And the fact that you are seeking this accreditation, that's a big heavy lift. We're certainly going to take that into account as part of your timeline.
Okay. Okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
we can't, you got to get graduates under this new degree plan. We know that's going to take time. You can't,
Yeah.
even though my guess is you will probably have some students in your current degree plan that will go, I want to do this. You'll probably have maybe some that switch. And so that'll
Maybe.
speed up your ability to get those early graduates, right? That you can then go in and do what you need to do for accreditation.
Maybe, although, oh yeah, so you don't have to start with a freshman, you're right. I'm
Yeah.
not sure because in order to meet accreditation requirements, the curriculum becomes somewhat more challenging. They have some math they didn't have to have before, some science they have to have before, so, students may not want to jump into something that requires more organic chem, more calculus, things like that. So it remains to be seen, so how many
Okay.
people jump ship.
Well, that's fair.
But,
But
yeah.
I know you have. I know I've taught some of them. I mean, so I know you have some fantastic students that you might be able to get them to.
Right.
What's his name? Jason Eng.
Yes, excellent student.
Excellent student. And I think
Yeah.
he even already took some of the extra courses.
Yes.
So you may have some of those students in the pipeline that you can, just say this is an option for you, and it would probably look better for your resume and your future career to maybe consider doing this. And so, certainly not every student's going to want to do that, but you may have a few that can help accelerate your pathway to accreditation.
Right.
How many
I guess-
graduates do you have to have before the accreditation can go in?
Let me check on that. I know they did a FEPAC webinar that we all attended about this. And then when they mentioned the the requirement that you have people graduated, we kind of raised the question of, well, we have an existing program, but we're, making it a new degree plan, and would our current graduates count? And they seem to want to consider that, but didn't give us any firm answers. It seems like when we ask questions, they basically are like, that's an interesting question. We're not sure. And then they never really figure it out. So it almost seems like you have to find out by applying for accreditation and seeing what happens. Although there was some discussion of them offering for a different fee, like a pre-look at you for accreditation. And a lot of the participants on the call were interested in that. So that would be nice. So you don't have to spend the money on the accreditation if you're not going to get it. But let's see. It said, okay. They said you have to have 2 years of graduates. So it's not a number of graduates, 2 years of graduates.
So you have to have at least 2 academic years with at least 1 graduate.
Yes. Yes.
I think you could probably find a few that might be willing and get you there faster.
That's not a bad strategy, actually. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we can get them to count the fact that we've been a program for a while now, and we're not brand new to forensics, right?
Right, no, of
If we
course
can get them
not,
to count that, then we could pursue it earlier.
Yeah.
But the other issue is making sure we have what we need in terms of equipment. There'll be a site review where they look at all those things, and so
Sure.
are we going to pass muster in those terms? So that may take a little time to find money and do those things as well. So
Sure. Well, I
anyway.
understand. Yeah.
it just seems
Well,
like a
you know,
very short runway in 2 years. Let's put it that way. Like we have a good plan.
Yeah.
But getting there that quick may be challenging.
Yeah, and just for everybody on the call, I mean, just to give you all a kudo, I mean, y'all have done a lot of really good work to, you know, in the forensics area to do this, and want to give you all a shout out for that. I know it's been a heavy lift, and you know, you and your folks were over here, and we back and forth, and I think we got you to a good place, and you all got yourself to a good place, I should say, with this, and we applaud the efforts.
Thank you. I appreciate the kudos and the help you gave us along the way, both.
That's what we're here for.
Okay.
Contrary to popular belief, that's what I'm here for.
Okay, I think that's all my questions about forensic chemistry for now. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Let's see. Any other directors or program coordinators that may want to chime in? I see that we also have Emily from Faculty Senate. If there's any questions from you, I'll be happy to answer those as well. Or any of the deans. We've got about 25 more minutes left in the scheduled drop-in session. I'm happy to stay here. But again, any of you who need to go, don't feel like you need to stay. I'll share the recording with you afterwards.
Hey Doug, I have a question. And many of this has already been answered, so I feel like I'm kind of repeating something somebody else has already said. But I guess just as from a faculty viewpoint, I think the sooner that the SCP committee comes up with the procedure and the timeline and faculty know that, the better. I think just the uncertainty right now, like we kind of like faculty knew what to expect for the fall because y'all had laid that out, but not knowing that right now is causing some, obviously, some anxiety. So I think, I know you're on that and quite a few faculty senators are too. But I think as soon as that is decided in that committee, if that could be sent out, that would be really helpful.
Okay, I will share that with those co-chairs.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Doug, I guess it's no one's asking questions. I was trying not to ask specific questions, but our biomedical sciences master's degree, its enrollment has been low because we were asked when we formed it to cap it at 8, simply because the room that has the cadaver in it can only fit a handful of people in for that class.
Mhm.
So that's really the only reason those numbers are low. So, I mean, really to fix that program, all we need to do is just admit we have plenty of applicants. We just have always capped it at 8, but we could double the, enrollment, pretty easily. And since it's only a year program, meet that number pretty quickly. So, I'm sorry. That's my assistant dean that I'm ignoring. So just that's how important this is. Sorry, Chris, don't tell David that. But but anyway, so just I don't know. I was just trying to get an idea for the your sense of how much. I know we have 2 pages to flesh that out, but that's really the only thing that's limiting that program is the self-imposed enrollment cap.
Okay, well, I think that that's a perfect opportunity for us to initiate a conversation. Obviously, the cadaver lab is in a different college, right? And I'd be happy to have that conversation with both my boss and Dean Gould and.
We've talked with Scotty. We've talked with Scotty about it already, and he was fine with that releasing that cap.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just a. I mean, how squished up do you want to be around the cadaver? Pretty much just the limit. We could fit about 18 people in that room if we
Okay.
needed to, and we've been capping enrollment around 7 or 8. So if we double that to 16, that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a solution right there. And I'll just mention, one of the things that I've always had a question about the biomedical sciences master's program is, many of those programs are attached to medical schools where students are admitted there, and if they do so well, right, they kind of get into medical school. Is that limiting us in any way, or because we don't have those agreements with a medical school, right? But or do you think that that's
No.
not an issue?
I don't think so. So that's the actually intent of the program is one of the intents of the program is someone who didn't quite do well enough as an undergrad to get into med school to kind of reset a GPA with this biomedical master's. And we've actually been pretty successful with that. So most of our students that complete the program go on to successfully enroll in another professional program afterwards. So it's meeting the goals of that, one of the goals. So yeah, being attached directly has not really affected. I mean, like again, for the masters, it's just 24 students in 3 years. The internal metrics are. So we don't anticipate having any trouble meeting that if we just simply take our own cap off just release our own cap.
Okay. Yeah, if we're not creating a problem somewhere else, we certainly don't want to create another issue elsewhere, right? So I mean, if it's can be accommodated, I think we should certainly pursue that. And I would just focus your let's see, now you ended up in that program ended up in not in it was the no apparent path, right? No, it was in the. Well, anyway, I would just use I would include that. Biomedical, yeah, it's in no parent path, and that's because you have that cap. Yeah. So, yeah, if you double your enrollment. Yeah. Now,
Thank
can you? So it is the cadaver is the limiting factor? Is that every semester that's offered, or is that just once a year?
It's just in the fall. It's just in the fall, and cadavers. I mean, they're not. I mean, they're expensive. They're not crazy expensive. And we get them from South Alabama's Medical College. But yeah, so it's a fall class. That's kind of what's been the holdup on that.
And so they take that in their very first semester in the program?
Yes.
And does that mirror medical school?
Yes. It
They take gross anatomy their first semester?
mhm.
Okay.
I think they take it a couple of semesters. What John Bailey tells me.
Okay.
Mhm.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't go in that room. I don't. That's why I'm a botanist.
Yeah, I was just wondering, if it was something that was taught both fall and spring, if you could like have half your cohort taking it in the fall, half, and you could. But if it's only taught in the fall, I mean that's a limit too, I guess.
Well, I guess that we could do that, but then we'd run into the 15 cap enrollment issues for that.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, folks, I know I said until 4, but it's 15 minutes till. So I'm gonna put out one last caller. Is there anybody that has any remaining questions? And if not, I'm gonna give you 15 minutes back and give myself 15 minutes back. Uh, so last call for any questions. All right, we'll see you. Yeah, you're welcome, Mike. Happy to do this. I will send out some information to you all. I'm going to see if there's a cheat sheet and the resources on our IE website. I'll see to it that you all get that, and you all have a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and stay safe out there. I hear some more weather's coming. Not today, but later. Talk to y'all later. Bye.
Well done, Doug. Thanks.